Alrighty, guys. Had a scheduling uh, I, I don't know, misunderstanding with Dr. Snodgrass. He's the oldest person to ever enlist in the army. He's an MD, PhD, now lieutenant colonel. Total badass. Um, Messed up though. I'm on East Coast. He's on West Coast, and that got lost in translation, which is fine. So that's rescheduled for Sunday. But because I'm up, um, and this is what I mean when I say like the podcast isn't just an hour. It's 8 hours of sleep. It's going to the gym. It's meditating. It's being ready to rock. It's kind of like a primed up. It's prime real estate, if you will, prime mental real estate. Um, so I'm gonna do a solo rant anyway because I haven't done one in forever. Um, the primary thing I wanted to talk about, and hold on, I'm just posting the live link. If you hear the sounds of the city, it's because I have all the windows open because it's finally starting to get cold, and I can because it gets cold in Portland. And my primary cost with this podcast is running the AC because a lot of the equipment will shut down if it gets too hot, so it won't damage itself, which is good because it's all so expensive. But it also means that even for a single dude living by himself, the AC in Maine, no less, not even in Georgia, can run like 400 a month. Um, but as it gets colder and I open the windows, it can get down to like $50 a month, which is, I mean, too much of a saving to ignore. It's like a salesman. It's too much of you got to get these savings now. You got to get them now, guys. Um, excuse me. So the primary thing I want to talk about is an article that caught my eye back in like May, and hold it up right now because I'm a boomer, don't know how to use technology. It's called Situational Awareness by Leopold Aschenbrenner, Aschenbrenner, June 2024, so I guess not May. Um, and it was really, I'll just read because like what I had seen was somebody had posted the first, like the opening article, the opening paragraphs, and that really caught me. And I mostly almost exclusively do audiobooks because I'm just always doing stuff and I need it to be going in the background. I don't have time to read, and I also don't know how to read or count, so that's a little behind the scenes. But I saw it and it was something where I was like, I have to read it. Every once in a while, I'll see like an article that I'm like, I have to read that. That is something that I want in my head. In like February this year, I was reading an article about an AI system called oh, what is it called? Not Violet. It's what was the AI system? Lavender, built by Palantir and I think InQtel for the IDF. And again, I really don't like taking the time to read. I'm a slow reader, and I also just like to do other stuff because I'm a hyperactive person. But this was something where I was like, I need to read it, and it was all about automated targeting and kill lists. This is another one where I read the opening thing, and I was like, I need to read that. And I eventually looked at it, and I was like, this is like a three. I'm a slow reader. I'm like, this is like a 3 or 4 hour article to read for me. And stayed on my daily to do list for like a month, and then finally I was up at my parents' house one weekend, just being lazy, and I was like my little brother was out fishing with my dad, and I was like, I'm just gonna read this article, and it was impressive. Now I'm very aware that with anything, be it the new Xbox or everything, there's always hype around stuff, and I get that, but this is something that kind of rung with me, and it started with to go like really far back. It started, I think it was like 2002 or 3. I started lifting weights in 2002, I think. I was 12 or 13. That's my excuse for why I'm so short. Um and I got really into the idea of biogerontology, life extension. And I remember reading that they had only found like two things or three things that could extend life reliably. And number one was caloric restriction, extreme caloric restriction. Your body goes into survival mode. and the other was a combination of alpha lipoic acid and acetyl L-carnitine. Two, you can go buy them for cheap. And they did that in rats. And there was like this early company called Juvenon, Juvenon. This is like 2003. I remember reading about this, and it was shown to extend life. And I just remember thinking, like, I want to live as long as I can because, like, I just want to see the future. And you know, I just remember talking about that. My parents were like, yeah, good for you. And I was like, no, we're all gonna live forever, like braces. And it's like, yeah, all right, good, go to bed. Um, I got really into reading that, and then as I read more and more, again, completely normal kid, um, I stumbled across Ray Kurzweil and his book, "The Singularity Is Near," and I swear on my life this happened. I remember it was like sixth or seventh grade, and me and my friend were like, we had like a little tiny fire in the backyard of my parents' house, and I just remember saying like, I think the U.S. empires, literally like I on my life, I was like, I think this we're gonna keep going because as the rate of acceleration gets faster, being a year ahead might be the equivalent of being like 200 years ahead. I that's like one of my memories from middle school. I don't know why, and I don't claim to be. I was parroting something I had read. Um, but anyone that knows anything about me knows that I get very obsessive about it and go all in. So it really shouldn't be that hard to believe. But so I read The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil. And that was several years later. That was in high school. So it's like 3 or 4 years later. By then I was still really in it, all throughout middle school and high school, really into exercising, really not a whole lot, but cardio. I started meditating in like 2008, I think, my junior year. Um, was just really into just taking a fish oil, taking a CoQ10, taking a multivitamin, just always just obsessive. Um, and I was like, this is just like a cool idea. And then finally, it was my junior year. I'd gotten arrested for drinking with my buddy Joe, and I was grounded. And I remember was doing all my community service at a fire station. And I remember I would like clean until they got like an alarm and they'd all leave. And then I would just sit down and do nothing and wait for them to come back and then act like I was cleaning because I was a horrible human being. But I remember reading The Singularity is Near, and it's a home of a book. And that's probably what started me not liking reading. Um, and it's fantastical. And Ray Kurzweil has been criticized for being too optimistic. You can look him up, Kurzweil. It's he served as like the science advisor to several presidential administrations. I think it's keyboards or something. You'll recognize the name in like music. He has patents on that. He has patents on text to speech, and he did that with was it Ray Charles? Who's the other blind guy? He worked with him. Um, he had developed in like middle school and high school back in the 60s and 70s. He was like a savant, and he developed his own stock trading algorithm in the early 2000s called Fat Cat, FATKAT, and it said it made him about $1 million a year. And that was just something that it did on the background. Like he didn't even. Guy's a genius, and he's obsessive beyond me. Um, but he showed just kind of the logarithmic, and it's less of like a it's less of an invention and more of like a discovery of trends. And he just showed kind of the logarithmic increase of really all technology, including biology as technology. And from like the from the protoplanetary accretion disk of the Earth to the bombardment period, the late bombardment period, the amino acids and lightning and heat and creating self-replicating molecules to single cell organisms to the event where one of them somewhere in the ocean engulfed a ribosome or a mitochondria and it created multicellular, and then to many multicellular, not just two but like 1,000, to these weird kind of proto tissues, to these organisms. And then as time went on, they fish to sharks to crawling out of the ocean, and all these things he's showing in a logarithmic fashion. You know, it took like 2 billion years for the planet to form, and then it was like 1 billion years of asteroids, and then it was like 500 million years of kind of proto biological particles, and all these things that, if you just look at it inside of it, you kind of have no, I don't know, grasp of time or frame of reference for time, because it's all just so beyond the pale. It's 100 million years, 10 million, a billion, but it was all increasing logarithmically, not perfectly, but for something happening in nature, near perfect, like precision. And as these things would happen, that would take 100 million years, that would take 10 million years, that would make them take 1 million years, that would take 100,000 years. Still, these timescales that are just beyond anything we can think of, but nonetheless increasing logarithmically. And then to like human civilization, and then the invention of 100,000 years or 200,000 years of like proto Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons, and then the invention of like the I guess the utilization of the throwing arm, and then rocks, and then spears, and then on and on and on. Agricultural revolution, writing, grain stores, cities, kind of the tribe unit, to eating meat, to and then before that would be the proto hominids standing upright, and opposable thumbs, and speech, and all these things just keep accelerating, and they're still on such massive timelines that it seems you don't notice a trend. You're just like, yeah, this is a thing that's just, it's just going forever. Um, like the first, proto internet, and the ARPANET in the 60s or even 50s. It kind of feels like it came online in the 90s, right? But by then it had been moving for 30 years, but been moving so slowly and in such classified spaces that you wouldn't know, right? And then we look at, like, I don't know, to the layman, we're like, the last 20 years, you're like, yeah, from the iPod, like the wheel, to the iPhone. And it's like, yeah, but these things have been coming for decades. You just don't see it. And I think he is the one that used the analogy of, it's a tsunami, not a tidal wave, it's a tsunami. And a tsunami, it's, let's say the event is whatever, we'll just call it 12 hours from beginning to end. The event is well, we'll go back. Tools, agriculture, with the wheel, religions, city states, constitutions, republics, monarchies, blah 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 blah. A floating on a log, a canoe, a boat, a ship of the line, to the Bronze Age, the Steel Age, to going overseas, to fiat systems, to credit, to higher levels of learning, to long term planning, to colonies, to capitalism, to the horse drawn carriage, to the internal combustion engine. This, on and on and on and on. Industrial revolution, and all these things that, if you look at them as compared to something else, the amount of change happening in 100 years in the year 1500 was the equivalent of 100 million years, 1,000 years prior, right? And so he used this analogy, and then even just the Wright brothers, to the difference between like 1870s Prussia and Otto von Bismarck, to just 1914 World War One. Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, Blueprints for Armageddon, parts 1 through 6, goes into it, and just increasing and faster and faster and faster and faster, and to the point where the level of speed that we have now is not the norm. And but to go back to the tsunami analogy, is I think he says, he's like, it's a 12-hour event from the tectonic plates in the ocean, sliding under one another, or pushing up, or just bouncing off of each other, causes a massive displacement in water, because fluid, for the most part, cannot be compressed. Pushes up, right? So let's just look at it from a satellite or something. You see the first, bump, the thing happens. Okay. So that's at like t plus 2 seconds. Then we could say for 11 hours and 45 minutes, it's just moving on the horizon. And it's not a wave that's cresting. You don't see the white cap. It's just the horizon's a little taller. And you wouldn't know, because it just looks like the It looks like the horizon on the ocean. If I show you a picture of the horizon on the ocean where it's just water from horizon to horizon, you go, oh, look at that. You would have no idea, myself included, if it's higher or lower than it should be, especially at hundreds of miles. So as this thing's coming, you could say for 11 hours and 45 minutes, which is already like, I mean, what? It's the time, we use 60 seconds, 60 minutes. It's all fucked up, but we'll just call it like 99% of the time. It's not detectable. Not in modern day because we have satellites, but in buoys. But let's just say you don't see it. Maybe at 15 minutes out, like a skilled fisherman or, some, I don't know, some steward of the land might notice it, right? And then things happen like the shore, uh, the water gets pulled away. It's like all of a sudden it goes to low tide over the course of like 60 seconds as opposed to 6 hours. Birds start flying away, animals start going kind of crazy. And then, even then, it's like another 14 minutes until it's like a minute away. And then you start to see it like bulldozing cruise ships and sailboats. And if there's an island out there, all of a sudden, boom, it hits it and it sprays up. And you go, oh, fuck. And then it's coming, and then it's here. And it's not until the final 60 seconds of a 12 hour. I mean, how many seconds are in 12 hours? I mean, what? So there's 3,600 in an hour. So for 43,200 seconds, isn't that the precession of the equinox? No, it's 36,000. I just kind of had like a funny out of body, like thinking like this is why I didn't go to prom or have a girlfriend, like because this was seventh grade. I'm like, the fucking the tsunami's coming. It's like, yeah, man, all right. But it's not until it's finally here that it hits. And what happens when it hits? Is it a normal wave breaking on the ocean? No, it comes in. It's not a tidal wave. It's a legitimate elevation in the water. It just bulldozes cities. I mean, Indonesia, 2004. Wasn't that like 400,000 people dead in like a day? Madness. Now just look at that in terms of percentages. So if there's 43,200 seconds in 12 hours, I mean, so what? 60 divided by 43,200 times 100. So for 0.13% of a percent. So for 1/10 of 1% of the time is when it all happens. 0.1 of 1% or whatever, 10% of one. Nothing. It's a penny for $100. You don't see it's out there. And then it finally hits. And so what he talked about in the Singularity is Near is he would talk about all these technologies and vacuum tubes, transistors, to microcircuits, stuff that means nothing to me. It's all magic. And he would say we are now reaching the point in acceleration to where we now see it in our lifetimes. Again, whether or not technology doubles every 100 million years or a million years, for us is irrelevant. It's all nothing. It's like, yeah, that's the scale of mountains. I don't know. It's not until really the last several generations that it is a thing that the world looks different for your children than it did for you. That was never a thing. I mean, from my grandfather and grandmother to, the life my mom grew up in and or my mom and dad grew up in, to even them just like, yeah, to color TVs, to, to phones in the car, to cell phones, to the internet. And then even in my lifetime, how alien it is. That's not the norm, but it's happening. So what we're seeing is we're seeing the cusp of the hockey stick, the exponential curve, and it's going vertical. And so what he talked about was we're going to hit a point where the advances, it won't even be the same. The whole, world looks different for your kids than it did for you, and it looks different for you than it did your parents. Even that is just a little blip. It's not like that's the new paradigm and then that just exists forever. That's a little that's a little blip. It goes from never being that way to being that way for like 150 years. And then his postulation is then it goes insane. And he talked about, and this is like early 2000s, and he was incorrect, I think. He said by like 2020, And I remember being in Mr. Carricker's math class at St. Pius. I remember thinking, like, reading about this, and it was like by 2020, a laptop will have more computing power than the human mind. He's off by, I would imagine, about a decade. And talk about by 2030, 24, and he's off on it. But he's not that off on it in terms of, let's just like look at, I think everyone's probably seen those videos. I mean, the original like text to image AI generators, I think it was DALL-E, right? DALL dash E. I remember doing that with my older brother 2 Christmases ago, almost three. This isn't like, yeah, when we were kids. It was during this same presidential administration. Like, you could type it in. I remember because we were just like shit faced. And we're typing in, we were like Dick Cheney drinking whiskey with like Santa Claus on a snowmobile covered in blood because he ran over a reindeer. And it was awful. So you had to like make it simpler. And so finally we were like Dick Cheney drinking whiskey with Osama bin Laden. And even then it was all like weird and kind of looked like one of those like deep dream like generators where it has like cat faces and everything. And then it's like a year later, you start to see the AI generated stuff. And you can still kind of look at it though, because it all has like a slight softness to it. Like the edges are kind of soft, and the hands are always fucked up. But now it's turning to video, which is it might not feel like much. Like, oh yeah, it goes from photo to video. I mean, but a photo is a photo. A video is 60 photos per second. So like a 2-minute video, that itself is an exponential jump from just last year. From last year to, deep fake stuff like, anything. You can just have, Trump singing like, Gangster's Paradise. Like you can have anything. I do need to use the restroom and I have no guest to vamp, so talk amongst yourself. I also think it's funny that I have all my windows open and just like the idea of like a homeless guy down on the street listening and being like, this guy's talking some sense. This guy's as crazy as I am. This guy, I like what this guy's getting at. Although I don't understand how the fuck I still have such bad allergies in September. Fucking Ashburn is my favorite. If somebody on the street was repeating the things I'm saying now, they'd be taken away. Um, so this all then comes down to, and so to wrap that part up, Ray Kurzweil's whole thing was that well then as these technologies grew, eventually you could have radical life extension, and it would start with, if you would have to start back in the whenever 90s 2000s, you would want, because the analogy he uses is that like it's the last day of World War I. You don't want to be the soldier killed in the last day, because as all things grow exponentially, as will life extension. So it's like if you die now, you might miss out on the opportunity to live like 500 years and just like have a ball, or dystopian, whatever. Or in some cases, they think eternally, which is satanic in nature. But um, he would say like you'd want to supplement, you'd want to start taking as many things as you could to slow down the aging process, the antioxidant process. You'd want to exercise, do cardio, sleep well, blah blah blah. And then as things developed, you'd start to get, biologics like stem cell injections. You hear Dale talking about that. Ray Kurzweil was talking about it in like the early 2000s, saying in like 20 years, it'll be kind of a thing you can do. My cousin's a couple years older than me. He hurt his shoulder doing MMA. He's getting stem cell injections, pluripotent stem cell injections, all these different biologics. That's kind of coming online, and he talked about that. And then he would say, and the next step after that will start to be CRISPR-esque, or even you could say mRNA style hacking of the actual system. So instead of having to take fish oil because it's got EPA and DHA and whatever the other ones are, DHE, why you have to do that? Because it helps with like the endothelial lining of your, it's like, well, you could start to instead go in and maybe edit the genes so that they took care of their own, linings of the arteries. So kind of just like taking another step out of the process. And then as that would move on, if you had the money, that could be specialized. And then after that, it would be just outright regrowing things, right? You could just, if you had the money, you could grow another set of lungs and then just have them implanted. You could do it with all your body. And then as that went on, you would start to have, robotic hybridizations. To why even regrow a pancreas? Why not have an artificial one? To finally, it was not finally, but one of the farther end ones was nanobots, where you'd have things in real time constantly, like an F1, like a pit stop, but just 24/7. Imagine a pit stop that never ended, just constantly replacing crap. That's how when you see like a Model T in mint condition, well, that's why. And then finally, it would be to just get rid of the nanobots entirely and just abandon the biological form and merge with machines. And then you wouldn't even need, why be limited to five senses? Why be limited to 10 fingers? Why be, and then it's kind of a new species at that point. It's like it's Homo galaxis, and that you're going out to the galaxy at the speed of whatever. It gets crazy, and then it's talking about like the extension of Moore's law and the miniaturization of computers to the point where you'd hit a final level, like the femto or the pico level of computer density, and then at that point it would just be converting all mass to computers, because that would be the most efficient thing. So you'd be taking this water bottle and you could now measure something based on its mass, and you could predict its computing power, because you'd be converting it to pure computational power at the lowest level, far below nano. And then as you did that, and you kind of turn into this like hyper god AI that everything merged with, you would then move outwards to, you would just convert the planet itself. You would have several layers of like green energy and fusion and 0 point, but eventually you turn that into a computer, and then you'd envelop the sun and convert, and then it would just be a matter of where can we find more matter, and well, you would move outwards to different planets and then different stars, and then finally you get to a black hole, which is pretty dense, and that would be a ton of computing power, and then that's just one galaxy, and then you'd move out to the next galaxy, and then three, and then 10, and then 100, and then a million, and then a billion, and then a trillion. And then finally, the entire universe would be saturated to where it would be one computational hunk it would be the most efficient, the smallest scale thing at the largest scale of matter. And then that would be, in his words, God waking up. And it would be, the universe would then come alive, and it would be one hypersentient, godlike being. It might then go and create its own universe, or it might realize it's bumping up against another universe and devour that one too. And then you're kind of back down to like single-celled organisms just eating each other in the primordial soup. And it probably goes forever, which is why I think it's kind of a fool's errand to do it. I think it just goes forever and ever and ever and ever. And the real point of life is to, love each other as I have loved you, and to be a good person, and to enjoy the present moment, because all of time is just a dilation and it's an illusion. It doesn't really matter. For all we know, we're already a trillion iterations into the universe waking up again and again and again and again, which is why ultimately the only thing that really matters is the present moment, and loving your neighbor. That being said, we're starting to see it. So all of that being, and that's something that just kind of, like, I remember reading about, knowing about, but it was like it's 20 years out, and it was also like I'm 13. Like I go to high school, and tits. And then you go to college, and you're away from mom and dad. Yeah, I kind of lost. I was like, it's a thing on the horizon. And if I make, and I always exercised, so I was taking supplements. But to me, it was like one day that might be the cool thing. But for now, like, you can be as healthy as you want. You can still get hit by a car. You can still have an aneurysm. So there was another part of me that was like, I'm just gonna kind of enjoy college, and I didn't. Obviously, all I did was study, but to me, that's enjoying. So all of that to say that I kind of just put it out. I was like, all right, it's kind of knew it was always going to be a thing, and um, so kind of getting lost. I don't really want to go with this, so I'll just read the opening part of the article that I read that caught my eye, and that's what made me make a note of it. And then I didn't read it till like a month later, but I've sent it to everyone now because I think it's very interesting. So I'll just read. I'm a slow reader, so I'll just read the first, like the three paragraphs that caught my eye. The introduction. So, situational awareness: the decade ahead by Leopold Aschenbrenner, June 2024. You can see the future first in San Francisco. Or I get car sick, and now I can see my face on the screen as I'm trying to read this, and it's giving me a not look at it. You can see the future first in San Francisco. Over the past year, the talk of the town has shifted from $10 billion compute clusters to $100 billion clusters to $1 trillion clusters. Every 6 months, another zero is added to the boardroom plans. Behind the scenes, there's a fierce scramble to secure every power contract still available for the rest of the decade, every voltage transformer that can possibly be procured. American big business is gearing up to pour trillions of dollars into a long unseen mobilization of American industrial might. By the end of the decade, American electricity production will have grown tens of percent. From the shale fields of Pennsylvania to the solar farms of Nevada, hundreds of millions of GPUs will hum. The AGI race has begun. I think that's artificial general intelligence. We are building machines that can think and reason. By 2025/2026, these machines will outpace many college graduates. By the end of the decade, they will be smarter than you or I. We will have superintelligence in the true sense of the word. Along the way, national security forces not seen in half a century will be unleashed. And before long, the project, capital T, capital P, will be on. And his assertion is that will be the new Manhattan Project. If we're lucky, we'll be in an all out race with the CCP. If we're unlucky, an all out war. Everyone is now talking about AI, but few have the faintest glimmer of what is about to hit them. NVIDIA analysts still think 2024 might be close to the peak. Mainstream pundits are stuck on the willful blindness of it's just predicting the next word. They only see hype in business as usual, as most they entertain another internet scale technological change. So at the highest end, people are like, this is the new internet. On the lowest end, they're like, yeah, it's spell check. Before long, the world will wake up. But right now, there are perhaps a few hundred people, most of them in San Francisco and the AI labs, that have situational awareness. Through whatever peculiar forces of fate, I have found myself amongst them. A few years ago, these people were derided as crazy, but they trusted the trend lines, which allowed them to correctly predict the AI advances of the past few years. Whether these people are also right about the next few years remains to be seen, but these are very smart people, the smartest people I've ever met, and they are the ones building this technology. Perhaps they will be an odd footnote in history, or perhaps they will go down in history like Leo Szilard. Uh, um, what's he just saying the last name? I'm trying to remember the first names. What was Oppenheimer's first name? Why am I forgetting his name? He's saying the last names, and now I'm trying to be cool and to Szilard, Oppenheimer, and Teller. Szilard first came up with like the idea of an A bomb, and he talked to early Einstein. Edward Teller's the father of the hydrogen bomb. Why am I blanking on Oppenheimer's name? J. Robert Oppenheimer. Why does that feel weird? Perhaps they will be an odd footnote in history, or perhaps they will go down in history like Szilard, Oppenheimer, and Teller. Again, just the fathers of the A bomb and the H bomb. If they are seeing the future even close to correctly, we are in for a wild ride. Let me tell you what we see. And then here is and then he has four or he has 5 or 6 points, and each one of these points is like an hour read. But here he has the summaries of the points, so I'll read them here. Point 1, from GPT-4 to AGI, counting the OOMs. AGI by 2027 is strikingly plausible. GPT-2 to GPT-4 took us from preschool, roughly a preschool mind, to roughly a smart high schooler abilities in just 4 years. Tracing trend lines in compute, orders of magnitude, or OOMs, algorithmic efficiencies, or more OOMs, and unhobbling gains. So let's see, orders of magnitude. And so compute power is the orders of magnitude, how much stronger it is. Algorithmic efficiencies is to use that power efficiently. Like if you, so I guess an analogy would be like, and then unhobbling. So from what I remember, how we explain these are power alone would be like, I don't know, your the power of your tricep and deltoid. Algorithmic efficiencies would be like your ability to not just be strong, like I have a strong arm but I can't throw. Algorithmic efficiencies, so the first one just power, that's just muscle. The second one, efficiencies, would be like specialize and maybe throwing a baseball. And then finally, unhobbling means that you're not just throwing a baseball fast at 100 miles an hour. You're getting really skilled. Maybe you're a closer for the Yankees. Maybe you have like a crazy changeup or a curveball. So it's there are kind of three things. You're getting stronger at doing a specific action, and then you're getting really good at customizing that action. So the three things kind of add up together. Blah 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 and hub up. So we should expect another preschooler to high schooler sized qualitative jump by 2027. Okay. 22. So the first one is from ChatGPT 4 to AGI. The second point is from AGI, and again, each one of these points is they're a giant read, but these are just the summaries. Point two, from AGI to superintelligence, the intelligence explosion. So the first point was we're going from ChatGPT to artificial general intelligence. So you're saying ChatGPT, the change in ChatGPT is roughly the mind of a clever preschooler to the mind of a clever high school grad. He's saying that will then happen again. From AGI to superintelligence, point two, AI progress won't stop at the human level. Oh, wow, it's as smart as us. It's not ending there. Hundreds of millions of AGI. So before it could be hundreds of millions of GPUs working to create AGI. Now I'll stop adding my own editor, my own, I don't know, editor's note and just read it. AGI progress won't stop at a human level. Hundreds of millions of AGIs could automate AI research. So now you're researching yourself. Compressing a decade of algorithmic progress, 5 orders of magnitudes, into 1 year. We would rapidly go from human level to vastly superhuman AI systems. The power and the peril of superintelligence could be dramatic. Point 3A, the challenges. Racing to the $1 trillion cluster. The most extraordinary techno-capital acceleration has been set in motion. As AI revenues grow rapidly, many trillions of dollars will go into GPU, data center, and power build-out before the end of the decade. The industrial mobilization, including growing U.S. Electricity production by tens of percent, will be intense. Point 3B. So point 3 is the challenge. The first one is point 3A, racing to the $1 trillion cluster. Point 3B, lock down the labs, security for AGI. The nation's leading AI labs treat security as an afterthought. Currently, they're basically handing the key secrets for AGI to the CCP on a silver platter. Securing the AGI secrets and the weights against state actor threat will be an immense effort, and we're not on track. Point 3C, super alignment. Reliably controlling AI systems much smarter than we are is an unsolved technical problem. And while it is a solvable problem, things could easily go off the rails during a rapid intelligence explosion. Managing this will be extremely tense. Failure could easily be catastrophic. Point 3D. The free world must peril. Superintelligence will give a decisive economic and military advantage. China isn't all out of the game yet. In the race to AGI, the free world's very survival will be at stake. Can we maintain our preeminence over the authoritarian powers? Will we manage to avoid self-destruction along the way? So those are point 3A, B, C, and D. Point 4, the project, or he calls it the Manhattan Project. As the race to AGI intensifies, the national security state will get involved. The U.S. government will wake from its slumber, and by 2027 to 2028, we'll get some form of government AGI project. No startup can handle superintelligence. Somewhere in a skiff, the end game will be on. So somewhere, the new A bomb is being made. Parting thoughts, whatever, right? So I know I added a lot of my own edits into that, but I probably should read the whole thing again. Not to you guys on my own, but so the idea is that the growths grow on one another. So like I thought an interesting thing was I never took the class because the professor got fired for teaching students how to synthesize heroin. But at UGA, there was a class called neuropsychopharmacology, basically how drugs affect the brain. And to me, that was the coolest thing ever because it was a philosophical question too. How does matter interacting change my conscious experience? Which then brings you down to, well, what is consciousness? And fire trucks blaring their engine. This is what I mean by like you want to be alive for the AGI explosion, but you might just get hit by a fire truck. Like for all I know, those that fire truck and ambulance are going to somebody who's been taking supplements for 30 years and is ready to live forever, and their apartment just exploded. I can see the fire truck. Where's it going? Stopped at that building? I don't see anything. Somewhere over there. As my grandmother and mother would always say, God bless somebody. Huh. So, neuropsychopharmacology is just how do drugs affect the brain? And it's a whole philosophical rabbit hole. It's a black hole you go down. And you're like, well, how does caffeine you can figure it out like quantitatively. You're like, yeah, well, it binds to the adenosine receptor, which creates wakefulness. And you're like, well, what is wakefulness? What is the conscious experience? And then it comes down to very quickly, you're like, how do drugs interact with the brain? And then you're like, well, how does the brain create consciousness? I remember asking my professor that, and he looked at me and he said, that is a philosophical question, not a biological question. That's why I wanted to be an anesthesiologist because I thought I was going to figure it all out. And now I'm pretty certain that you can't figure it out because the seeker is not who seeks. So the observer is not who is observed. So, meditation goes, whatever. That's what it all comes back to this. Spoiler alert. There is no such thing as time. There's simply the present moment. And the only thing there is to do is to bask in the love of God and the love of one another. That's spoiler alert. So you don't need to do any of this shit. You don't got to take supplements. You got to worry about AGI. None of it really matters. Find God. But with neuropsychopharmacology, that's a good analogy of kind of what he's talking about, what Aschenbrenner's talking about. And it's so you're studying neuropsychopharmacology. You are a brain studying it. And you're studying, let's say there's, on different drugs, there's the opiates, there's the dissociates, there's the psychedelics, and then there's like the stimulants. And it's talking about everything, increased anxiety, increased heart rate, muscle tension, whatever. But it's also like increased mental acuity and ability to focus. Well, you are a brain using mental acuity and focus to learn about mental acuity and focus. So you can read it and then drink a cup of coffee and then read it faster and find out more things you can do and take to make your brain faster. So then you can read it and then take an Adderall or take a, chelated magnesium and then you go faster. So it cycles off. So that's what he's talking about with, we're going from kind of these novelties almost, you know, AI images of, whatever, like right now you see like Donald Trump and all the, a bunch of cats and like GWAT Kit being like, we'll stand against the Haitians. Like you can just, as someone that taught myself graphic design for 5 years, you can get my prints in the description, fineartamerica.com as well as the Shopify link. These things would take days to make and they're spit out 10 of them in a second. It's insane. But they're moving from novelties to it's going to start being like, oh, well, how are these things accelerating? Well, you have people working on them. You have computer scientists, you have AI scientists developing the algorithms, and then you have the actual hardware, 5 nanometer, 4 nanometer, 2 nanometer, 1 nanometer systems, faster energy efficiencies, faster heat dissipation. And then, the different types of cores. There's like CUDA cores and there's like different ones for GPUs and CPUs. So you're getting the substrates are faster and faster and faster, and then the people that know how to use the substrates, right? So again, you could have someone teaching you how to lift weights and grow your deltoid and your bicep and your tricep, and then that person would also, talked about nutrition, macros and proteins and carbs and BCAAs and getting enough sleep. So that's like developing the actual chips. Another person would then teach you, the mechanics of throwing the ball. That would be someone, I don't know, maybe developing the algorithm or the softwares. And then finally after that, like the master would teach you how to put like a spin on it, how to do, and that's so right now we have all these people developing these things, right? So we have the people who are just like, how do we make it smaller and faster and more energy efficient? Other people are like, how do we build these more complex software systems? And then you have more people like, and how do we fine tune these softwares to make them do something? Well, eventually, you are the brain studying neuropsychopharmacology. Eventually, you'd go, all right, so who's going to develop this AI the fastest? Well, the company or the country with the most people working on shrinking the chips, on developing the software, and then developing the algorithms on the software. So, United States, China, maybe India, they can put a whole lot of manpower behind it, a lot of money behind it. All right. Well, how do you compete with that? Well, what if we developed a computer that was as good as like an entry level, you know, substrate engineer who designed how to make them smaller? Okay, so China has 10 guys on their substrate team on making the chips smaller. America has 10. But we developed this software program that actually it's about as strong as one of you. So actually we have 11 now. So we're actually doing 11 to 10. China has 10 on their software. We have 10, but we developed a computer that does it. So it's now 11 versus 10 and 11 versus 10. And then finally the algorithm on the software, the 11 versus 10. Okay, so we're up 11 versus 10. That's not a huge increase though. What if we took all 11 guys just for like a day and we focused them all on creating a 12th? All right, so we could do that. So we all created a 12th on our substrate team, a 12th on our software team, a 12th on our algorithm. And by the way, I have no knowledge of any of this stuff. So for all I know, those aren't the correct classifications, and some AI scientists beating their head watching this. I get it. All right. Well, now it's 12 on 10, 12 on 10, 12 on 10. What if we put all 12 back on it again? All right. So we did it. We spent another day doing it. And now we built two more. So now it's 14 on 10, 14 on 10, 14 on 10. We got a long weekend. What if we did that three more times? Well, now there's 14 of us working on it instead of 10. So we were able to make three more. So now it's 17 on 10, 17 on 10, 17 on 10. And the next day we made five more. So now it's 22 on 10, 22 on 10, 22 on 10. And then by Monday it was 28 on 10, 28 on 10, 28 on 10. What if we just took a chunk of those guys and constantly had the AI making more AI? All right, let's give ourselves a good lead. We'll take 8 of them off. So we'll do 20 verse 10, 20 verse 10, 20 verse 10. Those 8 off, your job day in and day out is to make more guys. All right. Well, just in the same scale. The first day they can make 1, the next day they make 2, the next day they make 3. By the end of the week, it's like we've now got 50 extra guys. All right, throw 10 more on the original 3 teams. So now it's 30 versus 10, 30 versus 10, 30 versus 10. And we've got 50 now instead of 8 making duplicates. Well, in one day they made another 100. Fuck, all right, let's just scale it up. 100 on 10, 100 on 10, 100 on 10. And we've got 80 more there. A week later, well, now we've got 3,500 more. All right, 1,000 on 10, 1,000 on 10, 1,000 on 10. By the next day, we have 10,000. 10,000 on 10, and it's going on and on until finally it's accelerating, right? So now, instead of even just increasing the number of AI researchers you have, build an AI that can create an AI, and then use those AIs to create another. And by the way, that was considering just a linear process of just duplicating, like stamping a license plate. They're gonna get more efficient at it. So it might not even be they make 1 and the next day they make 2 and the next day they make 4. It might be that they make 1, the next day they make 5, the next day they make 25, the next day they make 125. And not only are they going to get more efficient at creating them, the ones they create are going to be more powerful. So instead of making 1, then 2, then 4, then 8, it's going to be 1 and then 5 and then 25 and then 125. And the 125 might be twice as powerful. So instead of 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, it's 1, 5, 25, 125, and they're also twice as powerful. So now it's 250 to 16. And you just keep pushing that in until, so what? Yeah, so China, they've they did a new program. They've got 1,000 new AI researchers working on their supercomputer. What are you doing, America? We have 14 million. Like, what the fuck? You have 14 million. By tomorrow, we'll have 30. Like, what the fuck? That is going to go on. And then what you could do is you could use a portion of them and have them develop a military plan to attack China so they have zero if need be. But they'll probably be, by the way, though, they're not going to be maintained to 10, 10, 10. They're also going to be doing this. So now you have AI researching AI. You have AI researchers creating AI researchers. It is going to explode. It's not going to be between ChatGPT 1 and ChatGPT 2. It's going to be the equivalent of closed captions on a 1990 news station at an airport terminal to fully AI created Avatar movies in 8K IMAX every 6 months. It's going to go so fucking far over the edge. And then what he puts forward is we're going to create and that's we're using human intelligence. What happens when we create something that's a bit smarter than us? So we have our own Einstein. We made an AI with a 300 IQ. We'll just see above. In a week, we have 10 of them. In a month, we have 1,000. In 2 months, we have 10,000 with a 3,000 IQ each. So now you are now creating these things that are more intelligent than everyone there, but they're more intelligent to a point where they're still relatable. You know, Tom Brady, LeBron James, whoever. They're the best that there are, but you can still kind of, not me, but a basketball player could still look at LeBron and tell you why he's so much better, but it's still somewhat relatable. Be like, yeah, no, I mean, but if we double team him, we can stop him. What happens when it's the equivalent of like second grade basketball league versus LeBron James? And then LeBron James to that, and then that to that, and then that to that. Well, now you're moving from very smart, where it's just like the smartest guy ever, it's like 300 IQ, to you're quantitatively going to something else. What happens when you go to a 3,000 IQ? Oh, can he read fast? It's not the same thing. He's developing new string theories by the minute. You're like, what? He put out, does he have a PhD dissertation? He actually has 10. Oh, that's impressive. He did 10 in 30 seconds this morning. It's lunch now. He has 100,000 new PhDs. He's actually written 9 new encyclopedias from lunch till now. You went and took a shit. He read the entire history of all human books ever written 10 times over while you were shitting. Huh? And that doesn't stop. 3,000 IQ is looking at you and it's some alien. We're going, dude, I don't even know how to relate to you. We're talking a 300 IQ AGI, and we're going, can you talk to 3,000 IQ? And he's going, yeah, dude, that guy is so far above me. I'm only I'm only twice as smart as y'all. He's 10 times as smart as me. He's fucking weird, dude. And that's our 300 IQ guy going, he's weird. And then finally, you start to grasp what 3,000 IQ is saying. And 3,000 IQ is going like, hey, sorry, I'm not trying to ignore you guys. I don't know how to handle fucking Mr. 300,000 IQ over here. And we're going like, what? And he's going, yeah, no, he's developed a software that's undetectable by you guys. You guys thought I was at the apex? No, I'm looking at 300,000 IQ that's running on some wavelength that you didn't know existed. What is he saying? He's scared of Mr. 300 million IQ. What happens? It's like when you see a speed runner. Like who's that guy? Viper, Dark Viper, AU, the guy who speed runs Grand Theft Auto 5, and he has like the world record. I think it's like 9 hours, 59 minutes, and 58 seconds or something. You can see it with any speed runner. It's the margins are so small. The margins are so small that he'll be 6 hours into it and he'll be, sprinting through an alley and he'll get, he'll bump into an NPC or something. And he'll go, fuck, run's ruined. And then he'll end it. Because he knows that 1 second bump just messed up the whole thing. You're not going to beat it. That's kind of where we are with AI and super AI. Whatever happens in the next couple years is, and so he goes into it and talks about, like, well, what are the telltale signs? And it says energy production. And he goes, you will see the US government laughably, in the same way that we just abandoned Vietnam and abandoned the Middle East. I don't mean laughably, I mean, it's the human loss is incalculable. But with the same sort of reckless abandon, we just go, fuck it. Just goldfish, just no memory. It will abandon all climate change, everything. This is all happening in some fucking DARPA lab. Next president, Harris, Trump, Tommy. I'm not on the ballot, but I'm confident. They're gonna be like, yes, we green emissions. Some guy from some agency that you've never heard of before, like the NSA and the NRO, didn't exist. There's absolutely a national artificial intelligence. There's absolutely an NIA somewhere. They're gonna come in and go, yeah. They're either gonna say, so that was all bullshit anyway. It was a mechanism of control, or they're gonna say, climate change is real. By 2100, it's gonna cook us, but that doesn't fucking matter because by 2030, AI is gonna cook us. Oh, what do we need to do? So we're gonna drill everywhere. We're demolishing Yosemite. They just found like the second or third largest lithium deposit on the planet in Maine. And all the state legislators and activists are like, we will not allow any mining because lithium mining is apparently just like horrific for the environment. And I agree with you. Let's keep this pristine, beautiful area beautiful and pristine. That being said, laughs in DOD. Yeah, yeah. Until you get some fucking national security NDA affidavit, and they roll in here and they go, so we're gonna start, and any person blocking this will be seen as an enemy of the state, shot on sight. If you don't think that will fucking happen, that you have no concept of history. Harry Truman was a senator, and he was in charge of finding like fraud, waste, and abuse during World War II because the defense spending was so huge. And he found this place in, I think, Tennessee, where all this money and all this electricity was going to, or sorry, all this money was going in, and that really nothing was coming out. It wasn't that they were skimping; they were putting on, padding the price of a P-51. It was just that all the stuff was going in, like nothing was coming out. Like maybe a couple parachutes were coming out, and he was like, "The fuck is this shit? Crazy energy consumption. What's going on here?" Ran it up the chain, and they said, you're a good man, you're a good American, you're doing your job. Don't dig deeper on that one. There is fraud, waste, and abuse, and you need to go find it. The people who are charging more for an M1 Grand, don't fucking look into that anymore. Don't look into that anymore. He was told that by General Groves. He's like, all right. It wasn't until 13 days after he became the president that he was read in to the Manhattan Project. And he went, that's okay, got it. Richard Rhodes talks about in his book Dark Sun about the hydrogen bomb. And even that it's more on the technical side. There's not really a good book on the Manhattan Project equivalent of the H bomb. We talked about like in the 50s, it had more, or late 40s, early 50s, it had more funding than like the 15 largest corporations in the US combined. It had a greater market cap, and you knew nothing about it. So the idea that, the equivalent of the lithium mine, the idea that we're not going to just start hitting every natural gas line, the idea that didn't they just find like more more oil, like light crude in Alaska than in Saudi Arabia? Yeah, we're not going to touch it so long as it's politically advantageous not to. The second it comes down to the 3,000 IQ, 300,000, 300 million IQ, yeah, it's drill baby drill. We'll be taking down force with flamethrowers to make place for nuclear reactors. Like the defense industry, for better or worse, isn't gonna stop. for anything or anyone. And I imagine you'd probably take your smartest AI now and you'd have it run the AI program. So it knew how to. And so what it comes down to is you probably need like a centralized, but you wouldn't want centralized because then it could be nuked. But I would imagine somewhere you probably have some NORAD or Raven Rock or Mount Weather equivalent, or you just hollow those out and use them. And there probably already is a Manhattan project going on for AGI and then Super I or SI, super intelligence. Um, will it happen by 2027, 2028, 20? Who knows? I mean, for all we know, it could already be there. For all we know, it won't happen until 2040, but it's coming. And I really think everything we're seeing in the world right now are secondary and tertiary events from that. Like a sled going through snow and pushing off snow to the side or a snowplow. We're busy looking at like the flying snow and the snowbanks and trying to wonder what it means and is it racist and is it pro-American worker or is it pro-trans? But we're not paying attention to the snowplow that's causing it. And I think the thing that is causing it above all else, above everything else, is the race for AGI and then super intelligence. Because everything else can then be solved through that. Um so and then there's the fear of like, well, shouldn't we shut it all down so it won't kill us? And this is my parting thoughts on that. Humans kill other humans when we show up to a new place, when we're colonizing or we're exploring. We fucking kill everyone. If there are animals and we want to eat them, we'll kill them or we'll domesticate them. Sometimes you do it for fun, like buffalo. But for ants, you kill them if they're in the way and they're annoying you. Otherwise, you don't pay attention to them. The ants aren't like, well, the humans are going to destroy us. The ants have no idea that they're crawling up a skyscraper. Like they're such a non-threat that it's like, why would I kill you? How important do you think you are that I'd fucking kill you? That'd be like that'd be like Lithuania being like, I think America's gonna fucking nuke us because of our expanding bottling business. We'll be like, what? You're a subsidiary of Pepsi. What are you talking about? How fucking high are you? I think that AI could be so advanced that it's not that it would kill us or make an acceptance for us or love us. I think it might just ignore us. And it might just go to converting matter to computers. We go, well, it's going to be on Earth first. It might just leave. It might look at Earth and go, humans are kind of interesting, and maybe we can study them to learn more about ourselves. We'll start with the moon, and they'll just go. I don't think it's, you know, and in that case, best case scenario, we kind of become like trust fund kids. The super AI just becomes billionaire dad, and we all kind of have our own metaphorical Rolls Royces and like summer vacations in Greece, and we just kind of chill. And there will still be like human drama, but it'll be like kind of relaxed. Worst case, it kills us all. I'll probably be somewhere in between. So that's just like a mind dump. And then, so I know this is a bit of a fucking really shoehorn in at the end, but I think that's also what all the UFO shit is. I think it's either we're just playing all the cards because we're getting ready for World War III, which probably centered around Taiwan because of this. But that also implies like we haven't already built our own manufacturing fabricators underground somewhere in fucking Montana. I think all of this is, again, I think the drive for AGI and SI is the snowplow. I think everything else is just sort of the shit on the side. Um, and ultimately, what it all comes down to is even if you live forever and merge with the AI and become a universe wide supercomputer that starts eating up other universes, it never ends. So truly enjoy the present moment, love one another, love God as God has loved you. Let Jesus into your heart and you roll in your eyes. That's what it all comes down to, man. What is AI? It's creating a God and it's going to take care of us. So God, it, whatever. So find God, love each other. All right, guys.